Okay, so I just did a test, and to see if you don't have watercolors, you can actually color with markers, which is pretty cool. And I just did it a couple of times, but I'm going to show you how this works. And I'll zoom in here to see. Okay, so I'm just going to make a few swirls. Got some swirls. So I've done my pattern. Then I might do some dots, okay? So if you do not have watercolors, you can paint with markers. It's pretty amazing how this works. You're gonna color just a little bit on top of it. See, even my marker, this is probably a really great way to revive your dead markers, the markers that look like they're really dried out. Don't throw them out necessarily, because you can always use them to paint. So I just colored a little bit on top, and now all I do is, I get it wet. So I dip my paintbrush into my paint cup. I wipe on the side because I don't want it to be too soaking wet. And then I just paint on top of it. And then you get to see the crayons coming through. My camera is still really blurry. All right, so you can paint with markers. But for this exercise, if you do have watercolors, please do not paint with the markers, because that will end up using a lot of your markers faster than you normally would, and you're going to have to go and get some new markers. If you have watercolors, use the watercolors. All right, so I finished making my patterns in my rooms. Can you see the different kinds of patterns I made? So I've got a stripe, a horizontal line, a dotted line, horizontal line, dotted line, straight line, dotted line, straight line, dotted line, straight line, and it goes all the way up. I did just a curly line design inside of that zigzag. The swirl lines, all I did really to make that pattern, not necessarily a pattern, but it is because it's a repeated line, I just did swirls all inside of there. Over here, I made some zigzags with some swirls. Then I threw in some shapes. We haven't gone over shapes, but I just did those little squares or diamonds in there. And I have my line design over here. All right, so this is what you're gonna do. You now get to paint with your watercolors. So when we paint, we have to make sure that we have our tray of watercolors, our cup of water, a paintbrush, and you do need a small paper towel. Now that paper towel comes in really handy. Got my paper towel right here. That paper towel comes in really handy in case your brush is too wet, or if you have a mistake. Sometimes you might have a ton of water that just kind of plops out on your artwork and you don't want it to be there. You can always blot it up using your paper towel. You know, that happens a lot in class. Kids will say, oh, Mrs. Chapman, I just ruined this part by putting too much water. Nope, you didn't. You just have to take your paper towel and you just have to blot it very gently on that mistake and you'll be fine. All right, so now you get to paint, and I don't really want to show you everything that I'm going to do, but I'm just going to show you a little bit about the procedure. We swish, swirl our paintbrush in our cup, wipe, and then I think I'm just going to pick out a pink color. And I think I'm going to do my pink color inside of my zigzag line. Or not my zigzag line, my castle line, sorry. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to paint very carefully in there. And when you start to paint, you'll see that that crayon makes it so you can't paint. So you see how that yellow is really showing through? That's why I wanted you to really concentrate on making as many line designs as possible, because that's where you get those really cool effects. coming in. So it ends up looking really, really wonderful. All right, so I'm just going to do this for a little bit longer because I don't want to spend all my time or spend your time showing you how to paint. I want you guys to get to paint. And you can mix and match colors. The only thing that I want you to make sure that you don't do is you need to keep your paint tray clean. So if you look over here on this side, this is a really good place to mix your colors. Or you can take a plate, you know, a kitchen plate, like a small little tiny saucer plate. You can mix your colors in there. Just make sure you don't eat off of that paint, off of that plate. You got to wash it really well before you do that. But you can mix. That's why you have these little, they're called wells. You have them over here. When you mix, you put your paint over here in the well. And then you have to clean your brush, wipe it off a little bit because you don't want it to get too watery. You don't want your paintbrush to be filled with water. And then you dip your paintbrush into your color. Another thing I want to stress, when you watercolor paint, treat your paintbrush nice and kind. Do not stab your paintbrush into the paint. That will ruin the paint and that will ruin the paintbrush. It's almost like you want it to just gently tickle the paint. It picks up. Yeah. So look at the color that I'm making. So I'm making this nice little color over here. I'm going to grab some more paint. So I'm putting it over in my well. I'm going to go back to this color and I'm going to dip it a little bit more. Okay. So I've got this really, really pretty blue. And now all I'm going to do is I'm going to start to paint. And you see that resist? So it's in there. Now you can always switch colors. You don't have to paint just one color. You don't have to do that. You can mix, you can match. Maybe I'll throw in some green. You can always mix on the paper as well. So you see how that's coming out where you're starting to mix those colors? That's one of the reasons why I love watercolors so much, is that you can do a lot of different things on your paper. I might go ahead and I might do some yellow. You just have to make sure that you're being really responsible with your paintbrush and you're not dipping your paintbrush into your paint after it's already dirty, because what ends up happening is you're going to end up getting blue in your yellow. You're going to end up getting all sorts of different colors where you don't want them to be. And then you're going to end up ruining your palette. So you want to make sure that you're keeping your palette nice and clean and you're mixing your colors over here or on the plate or on your paper. Ooh, awesome. I'm loving how that's coming out. I might actually finish it up with a little bit of pink because it's turning into a little bit of a rainbow over here. Nice. And I might do a little bit of orange. So you guys just play. You decide how you want to do your watercolor paint. That's completely up to you. All right. And then after that, you're going to let it dry. Please don't try to tip it. You know, take it over to somewhere for it to dry. We have to carry it like a plate. Carry it so it's nice and flat, and then make sure that it dries. All right. And then when you're done, post a picture. Send it to me via email. For some of you that are in Seesaw, you can send it that way. I would love to see it, and then I can put it in our art gallery pages. All right, have a great day.